Welcome to the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by the big man Bakar to preview Game Week 17. Bakar, we need a lot of help this week. Flags all over the place. What do we do with Erling Haaland? You're on the back of yet another green arrow. Is that 9 in a row? Unbelievable.
Yeah, hello Jack. Thanks for having me. Hello and welcome to all the listeners and viewers. Ninth green arrow. Yes, very happy with the way things have progressed since the first wildcard. And yes, of course, luck has been favoring me as well in recent times. You need that drop with the green. But I'm happy now that I'm making, slow progress, but, it's gradual progress and I'm heading in the right direction. So I'm very, very happy with how things are going, and with the game weeks now coming thick and fast, I'm hoping that I can keep the momentum going.
Yep, 100%. Getting your team up on screen right now, a pretty sizable green, to be fair. One of the biggest that you've had this season. You got to be happy with the score of 63. Only a few of your players actually returning, but going forward, the team is looking pretty strong now in comparison to other people out there. Obviously, we have injuries to talk about, which we'll get onto, but overall, happy with the team?
I guess had the Haaland injury not happened, I would have been in a better place. But now, I do have some fires to put out. I have a Darwin to Watkins transfer booked already. So Watkins has to come in at some point. And now I have Haaland to deal with as well. So there are a few fires that I need to put out. But hopefully, if I can manage to navigate through the next 4 or 5 weeks, I think it'll be a pivotal point in my season.
Right, let's get straight into it then. Haaland obviously didn't play last game week. We need to talk about him straight away and what your thoughts are on him. How likely he is to play this weekend. It seems a little bit more likely than it was at the start of the week, where he was pretty much 100% ruled out. Now, there's a little bit, we're still waiting for Pep's comments, of course, but it's a little bit more up in the air. I'd say he's still unlikely to play, but yeah. What are your thoughts with him right away, just in a general sense, and then for your team in particular?
Yes, I mirror your thoughts, exactly. And, if I was to guess, I don't think he'll play, but you never know. It's obviously the main thing is that we have to wait for more information tomorrow, whether it is from Pep's press conference, whether it is any leak we get from City's final training session. I just don't think moving early makes sense this week, because that point 1, point 2 that you gain, I don't think it's going to be as valuable as the information you gain from knowing about the absence of Haaland, and we don't really know the extent of his injuries. There's a chance that there's an outside chance that he could be, fine for Game Week 17. There's a chance he might not even play by Game Week 19. So we just have to wait for news before we decide which routes to take, because there are plenty of routes to take with Haaland. Let's say if he's fine, then obviously it makes sense to keep him. If he's out, then we have to sort of figure out how long we think he will be absent for. If he's out till, let's say, if we think he's out till the new year, then of course it makes sense to sell him and to upgrade your 8th attacker and spread the funds around. But let's say if he is back by Game Week 19, then maybe you need to have a plan in place to get him back by Game Week 19 or 20 at the earliest. So, all these kind of things, they depend on what we think will be the duration of his absence.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, let's talk about your team in particular then, and just your thoughts for what you're going to do if he is out. So say we are pretty confident that he's not going to play, and you think, okay, we're not entirely sure if he's going to be out for a long period of time, but he's going to be out for this week and the next week, obviously, with that blank. What would your moves be? So you've got Darwin, no Watkins.
Yeah, I mean, before I come to my team, I want to talk about most teams in general.
Okay.
Basically, because I think, if you, for example, if you have Watkins and you have Haaland, then in my opinion, for most teams, I think it makes sense. Let's say we, don't hear anything positive on Haaland tomorrow, then I think Solanke is the obvious replacement, in my personal opinion. I say that because I think that most teams are sort of set up in a way where the bench is not strong enough to cope with any injury to Haaland for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Because if Haaland is missing this week, he's blanking in Game Week 18. I don't think most benches are set up in that way where they can afford to bench a 14 million player. I mean, sure, if you think that Haaland will be back by 19, and if you have a bench to cope with it, then of course, by all means, keep Haaland and then just play the rest of your squad, because that would essentially save you transfer later down the line. But personally, I don't think a lot of teams are set that way. So when I speak about the majority of teams, I think it makes sense to sell Haaland. For teams with Watkins, I think Solanke is the best replacement, as mentioned earlier. In the previous 5 game weeks, Bournemouth are top for XG, and in that period, Solanke is top for shots inside the box and non-pen XG. So I mean, his numbers throughout the season, apart from Haaland and Watkins, have been the most consistent among all the forwards in the game. And with Bournemouth having a run off Luton at home, then Forest away, Fulham at home, I think it makes a lot of sense for Watkins owners to go there. personally. Then there's the other camp, which includes Darwin owners like myself. And I think you own Darwin as well, right?
Indeed.
Now, yeah, exactly. So now that is trickier because then you have an option to pick between Watkins and Solanke, right? And it is not that straightforward because in such a case, in my, for example, when I talk about my team, I'm looking at two routes. The first route I can adopt is that I can just go with Watkins, straight away this week. I can sell Haaland to Watkins. I keep Darwin next week, and then I move Darwin to Haaland back in Game Week 19. Now, Game Week 19 is important as well because Game Week 19 is a midweek game week.
Yeah.
And in that game week, I don't think Darwin was going to play. I think Darwin will be rested, as we've seen the trend that he tends to play one fixture, then gets rested in the next, and he plays 2 out of 3 every week. So looking at the Liverpool rotation, I think there's a trend here, and in my personal opinion, I think he'll get the Arsenal game and he'll miss the fixture against Burnley. So whatever I do with my team, I'm either going to be benching Darwin in Game Week 19 or either I'm going to be planning to sell him. So there's this school of thought here, but obviously this assumes that Haaland will be back by 19 so that I can make the Darwin to Haaland transfer in 19 and I can go with the Watkins route this week. This is probably the more sensible option because, it sort of brings forward the Watkins transfer, who, in my opinion, Watkins is going to be the best captain next week. So it sort of brings forward transfer and gives me, plenty of time to be more flexible. Now, the second route that I'm considering is to get Solanke in for Haaland instead of getting Watkins this week. Now, this assumes that I will be getting Watkins next week, either for Darwin or either for Archer, one of them, right?
Yeah.
And I personally think that the Solanke route for my team, for most non-Watkins owners, makes sense only if Haaland is to be ruled out after, let's say, if he's out for a while, right?
I agree.
Let's say if he's out till Game Week 20. And in that case, let's see, we hear some report coming out that he's out till the new year. In that case, Solanke makes more sense because with the 3 fixtures, he covers Haaland, and you can then get a strong front 8 so that you can maneuver the front 8 around, and even if Darwin is a problem, you can bench him, and then you can get back Haaland later after Game Week 19 through a Salah downgrade, because Salah will be heading to the African Cup of Nations in 21, and in Game Week 20 he's playing Newcastle at home, and that is not a fixture where you would expect Captain Salah, especially when Man City are at home to Sheffield United or Spurs are at home to Bournemouth. He would likely go for either Son or Haaland. So I mean, these are the options that I'm considering. Long story short, if you have Watkins and you own Haaland, you don't have a strong bench, you go with Solanke. If you don't own Watkins and you think that Haaland will be back by 19, you probably go with Watkins. And let's say if you don't own Watkins and you think that Haaland will be out till Game Week 20 or even after that, then you go with Solanke. So these are basically it's the crux of what I've mentioned in the previous 4 to 5 minutes.
Yeah,
I hope I've not made it confusing for the listeners and viewers.
No, I don't think that's confusing. I think that makes complete sense. I think it's worth mentioning that you are pretty much saying that you think that Solanke is better than Watkins for the next fixture, but long term Watkins is obviously better. And by going for Watkins now, if you don't have him, you are saving that transfer that you're going to have to make for 18. I think that's kind of what you're saying. But if Haaland is out for long term, then you have that extra transfer because it's fine. You don't need to bring him back in immediately. You can do more with your team. Yeah, I do agree with you. I think Solanke is the best pick as well out of any other forward apart from Watkins if you don't have him. Do you think there's anyone else that people could go for a punt on? People don't always like to go with the template Twitter pick. The likes of Isak. Didn't Wilson played full 90 in Champions League?
I don't think Isak is an option because even though I expect him to start against Fulham, he's an excellent option for that fixture. Let's say if anyone is on a free hit this week, it makes a lot of sense. But with Wilson back, I just don't think I'd go to Isak. There's another sub scenario which I'd like to mention now that I've cleared all of this out, because a lot of us own Gordon, right? And if he is, let's say it's unlikely that we hear any truth coming out of Howe's mouth tomorrow. But let's say if he, gives us this update
that is very true.
If he gives us this update that Gordon is out for the Fulham fixture, he's unlikely to make it. Then I think there's a sub scenario where those of us who don't have Watkins, then Haaland to Watkins could be an option, and then the money that you generate from that sale could be used to upgrade Archer to Solanke. For a hit, or if you have 2 free transfers, then you can use the 2 free transfers. But let's say if Gordon was to be ruled out this week, I think I will take the hit and get both Solanke and Watkins in, because A, it would cover me for this week, B, it would give me the best best two forwards who I think will be, the high scoring ones in the next 2 to 3 game weeks. And third, it would give me Solanke to cover for Darwin's potential absence in game week 19 as well. And let's say if Palmer was to be suspended in game week 18, he would cover that as well. So, it would cover a lot of bases in that way.
Palmer, of course, now one yellow card away from suspension. That's very important.
A lot of this is very team dependent. This Haaland sale. And it just comes down to who you own, who you don't own, who you plan on bringing in the next week. Because the plan for Watkins owners is different. The plan for Darwin owners is different, and for Gordon owners, there's a further subsection to add here. So I hope I've covered it in detail.
Yeah, 100%, and that is before even getting onto the defense, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, because that is, well, I don't know, with suspensions and injuries, that is as much of a deliberating point really than Haaland for certain teams. I think though, most importantly, it is worth, as you're saying, to wait for information. What will you be doing personally? Are you going to wait up until the deadline to make your transfers? Obviously,
yes,
you have set plans, but yeah.
Yes, of course. I'm not moving tonight. I'm going to hope against hope that we hear something on Gordon. I'm going to wait for Haaland news, and then I'm going to decide on the replacements.
Yeah, makes complete sense. I don't think it's worth, personally, gaining an extra 0.3 million that we're not going to need for quite a while actually anyway, because as you say, Salah and Son off to their respective tournaments, that money can be distributed. It's not the end of the world losing a bit of money to gain a lot of information.
Exactly. Let's say if Haaland is out till game week 18, 19, then Son and Salah are flying out in game week 21. I mean, there's gonna be, the template's gonna have one premium player at best, right? And even that is going to be Haaland. And, the second one will be Saka, who's not even a premium asset. He's like a semi-premium-ish player. So you won't need those 0.1, 0.2s for a while. So just having that bit of information is going to be very, very critical.
Let's move on to captaincy this week, because I feel like it would have been, well, I don't know, actually. It might not have been that obvious. Haaland at home to, a fit Haaland at home to Crystal Palace. It would have been very hard not to captain.
Yeah, I would have captained Haaland. I mean, I'm pretty sure if he was fit and if there was no injury scare, I would have captained Haaland. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
me too. But now with the news or lack of news, what are you thinking?
It's going to be Mo Salah. I mean, I'm very confident that's not going to change.
It has to be him, do you think?
It has to be. I mean, Liverpool are at home. They're projected to score, around 3 goals. United have plenty of injuries. Maguire, Shaw, Bruno won't be playing. I mean, the fixture is there for the taking. I'm also hoping, Jack, that Darwin gets rested tonight, because that's another headache I'm not willing. That's another headache I just don't want to be having this week, especially when there's so many things to consider. If Darwin gets rested tonight, obviously I think he'll play the United game, and I want a piece of that Liverpool attack, because everyone's going to be on Salah, right? Everyone's going to be on Salah captain this week. He'll be very highly captain. So, that bit of differential could do well for me. Okay,
let's move on to your defense then. The starting three, I think, are all right. And now that you're kind of set on holding on to Saliba and Gabriel, I mean, you tell me if you're not, but when you get through these relatively 2 tough fixtures, it does get better for them. Let's talk about Cash, though, who is probably the problem player. I mean, Taylor's fine. Yeah, he's suspended this week, but he'll be back next week. But Cash is the one that I've seen you tweeting about him. I am actually kind of up in the air myself as to whether I still have him in my team. I am not sure whether he is worth holding in case he might play the massive fixture next week for us FPL managers in the blank. What do you think then? What are your plans with Matty Cash?
Sure. I mean, with my defense, firstly coming to Arsenal, they're still comfortably first for XG conceded. Okay. I'm going to be holding on to them. I think there are bigger issues in my team to address. Yeah. Even though the next 2 fixtures aren't ideal, from game week 19, Arsenal have West Ham, Fulham, Crystal Palace, Forest, which is a great run of fixtures. I can see at least 2 clean sheets for them in that run. So I will not be touching Saliba and Gabriel in my team unless they get injured. Coming to Cash, my counter question to you is, so I've been speaking to plenty of Villa fans. I feel Willen and Adam Hopcroft. There is this opinion in the community that they feel that against the deeper blocks, against the easier opponents, there's a decent chance that Cash comes back in against Sheffield United in particular in game week 18 and then Burnley in game week 20. My counter question to you is that if you own Cash, I mean, if you've shown this amount of patience keeping him to this date, who would you even sell him for if you have three playable defenders in your team, like I assume you do, I mean, a lot of people have Porro or a Newcastle defender, and some have Arsenal defense and
Yeah.
Tsimikas. Who do you even sell him for? Let's say, who has a better fixture than him in game week 18? Because in game week 18,
Well, anyone, if he doesn't play, which I guess that's what it comes down to.
in game week 18, I don't see too many better alternatives to a Villa defender. I guess you can sell him for someone like a Pau Torres or Konza, but
No,
I don't think it makes sense.
I mean, the only one really is Porro, and if you do already own Porro, then I don't see the point in selling cash. I agree. I don't think there's anyone else. And even Porro's fixtures aren't phenomenal, but we know the attacking threat that he has. I just think it comes down to how much you think that Cash is going to play those, well, particularly that Sheffield United game.
I mean, if there's a chance that he plays, then why not take that chance is what I'm asking. Because next week, if you have him, then he's one of the best defenders in the game if he starts. Because, I mean, you look at the fixtures next week, the odds of clean sheet are very, very low. You look at Arsenal, they're playing Liverpool, so probably Arsenal and Liverpool both are going to score in that fixture. You know, the likes of Gabriel Tsimikas won't be great. I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, United are playing West Ham. Crystal Palace have a toughish fixture against Brighton. So I just think if you have cash and you have three playable defenders this week, I mean, that's the critical part. If you don't have three playable defenders this week, then I would switch cash out, because obviously the gain that you will make from selling him and playing a defender in your 11 this week makes a lot of sense. But if someone has Tsimikas or a Newcastle defender or someone like Porro and an Arsenal defender, then I'm not sure whether selling cash is a must. I think it's a bit of a luxury at this point, because there are more fires to put out.
Yeah, I think that's the I think with no fires, I think I would have been very tempted to sell cash and get Porro in. I just think that it's kind of a little bit not naive, but Cash is not in the first team anymore. So we're expecting Emery to play, in his mind, a weakened team. I know it doesn't work like that, and obviously you pick different players for different oppositions. But I don't see Cash just suddenly getting back in the side for these games. Yeah, of course it could happen, but I don't know. He's not in the first 11. I think we can agree on that.
I don't think. I mean, Emery is the kind of manager who tends to pick his team on the basis of opponents.
True.
And there are around 7 to 8 players who are nailed in his lineup, and the other 3 or 4 keep rotating every now and then. So that is what it essentially comes down to.
So do you think if he plays that Sheffield United game, who comes out? Is it a direct swap for Konza?
I mean, Bailey was not seen in training, so I mean that's a factor. Let's say
so he could play higher up.
He could play higher up, I think.
But Diaby as well.
Play higher up. Carlos could drop out. Let's say Konza goes to centre back. Cash goes to right back. Diaby comes back in, because Diaby is expected to start as well. So we don't really know at this point. But there's an outside chance which I'm happy to take, because
that's fair.
Of the lack of alternatives available.
Yeah.
It's not as if I'm missing out on a big haul.
Yeah, true. I think, you're right. I mean, obviously he does have full potential in that fixture. And as you say, there's not really you're not losing much by keeping him if you have 3 playable defenders. I don't think Forest away is an unbelievable fixture for clean sheets, and who knows, Porro does look very good going forward and could have had a haul in the last game week. But yeah, I think I might just end up holding cash for a couple more weeks and hope that he plays in.
Yeah, watch him get benched now.
Well, I do expect him to get benched. I will say that. I just don't think he suddenly comes back into the team. We'll see, but I don't know. I think Emery will be loath to change a winning side that's been doing so well. And set pieces, Sheffield United, pretty strong team. I think that's one area where, under Chris Wilder, that's where they're gonna try and attack and get a goal. You do want some height in there, but we'll see. Who knows? Let's talk about some other defenders now. I don't really want to talk about him, but Reece James, man. I mean, it's just as a Chelsea fan, it's become a bit of a sick joke, really. I
was genuinely close to getting him. I was genuinely close.
So I was nowhere near. I will say, I've got to jump in. He's not even in my thoughts. He's had time off, and yet he still was carrying an injury, and now obviously he's picked up another injury. What a surprise!
I got Porro in last week, because obviously Porro, with his attacking stats, and the fact that he's not as injury prone as James, I did think he was a better option. But let's say, had Pedro Porro not existed, I think I would have picked James. I really
Yeah,
do.
that is fair.
A lot of people were in the
That's
market
fair.
for a defender last week. A lot of people were selling, the likes of Andersons, Gahey's, Mitchell, Cash, all these kind of guys,
Mm.
Maguire. So a lot of people were selling these guys in recent weeks. And with Chelsea's run of fixtures, James could have been more popular. Yeah, I mean, just the guy's just
If
made
he
of
was
glass. It's very,
nailed.
very unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, it's for those who own him or for those who own a Palace defender. I would just think it's an easy swap to Porro.
Hmm.
I mean, the guy is ranked first for XGI, final third touches, penalty area touches since Maddison's injury, and even though Spurs don't necessarily have the best defensive stats, no one is keeping a clean sheet these days. So you just go with the guy with the highest attacking threat, and that's exactly what I've done with Porro.
Okay. I want to ask you finally, before we come on to your AI recommended transfers, about a potential wildcard. A lot of people that were waiting for maybe later on to wildcard with that 18 blank in mind, that might have turned into a double. We're now not sure when that's going to be. It's not going to be as soon as we thought. What would be the general, you don't have to go player by player, but what do you think the general structure of your side would be? Where would you be investing most of the money? Would it be similar to what you have now?
Let's say if HAALAND was injured, I think the front line pretty much picks itself. It would be Solanke, it would be Watkins, it would be Alvarez. I mean, a lot of us are not considering Alvarez because our teams are not exactly structured to deal with the game week 18 blank. But if someone is on a wild card this week, and I do think this wildcarding this week could be really, really powerful, really strong, then someone like Alvarez could be a very good option. And then in midfield, I mean, the likes of Salah, Son, Saka pick themselves, Palmer, even you can get someone like a Douglas Luiz who could cover game week 18 well. Then in defense, I particularly like the option of Edison with City's fixtures. And I mean, in the defense, you could get a Willer defender, someone like a Konsa or Torres or Colwell, who's cheap. And Porro picks himself. Trent, I would definitely have Trent.
Really? Okay.
Given his form. Trippier is, he's an injury out and he's suspended this week. So I would have Trent and an Arsenal defender. So that would sort of be the structure I go with on the wild card.
And Trippier going forward for those people that own him. Obviously, I feel like with just the suspension, he probably was a bench. But now with this injury doubt as well, what's happening there?
I mean, until we hear further news, he's probably worth keeping because Newcastle have Luton and Forest at home in the next 2 weeks after this week. So he's definitely worth keeping until we hear definitive news that he's out.
Okay. Yeah. Tough one for owners, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of people that had Trippier probably didn't have Son and now maybe are kind of wondering if they can shift some money around by selling Trippier. But you think worth holding with those fixtures, yeah?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on finally to your AI recommended transfers. What do you think they're going to be? Now, I will caveat this before you answer with we're not sure at the time of recording on Haaland's minutes. Hub have set his predicted points at 4, which is somewhere in between him playing and not playing. It's unsure. He's not included in this because we don't know. So that information is necessary before you give your prediction.
If Haaland is assumed to be fit, I think it'd probably sell cash for Colwell.
Interesting. That is really, really interesting. I think the reason why it's suggesting this transfer is due to the lack of good defenders other than Porro. Because it's not suggesting to sell cash. I think because I'm not entirely sure who you'd go for who's nailed on. The recommended transfer is actually Darwin out for Watkins. A player that you've said that you need to get in eventually. Darwin, let's be honest, has been extremely frustrating.
Yeah, I mean,
yes, he's got a decent fixture, but
it's not a bad chart because my defense is kind of all right this week with double Arsenal defense and Porro. So it probably just thinks that I should bring the transfer forward from Darwin to Watkins, which I'm going to do next week anyway, which is a fair suggestion. But let's say if everything was fine in my team and if Haaland is fine, I would just roll.
Yeah, and that is the alternative. And I think that would make sense as well.
Exactly. That's what I would roll because I generally think that if Darwin plays against Man United, even for 70 minutes, he could outscore Watkins against Brentford.
I agree.
Even though I think Watkins will get a return, but Brentford away isn't the easiest fixture. Brentford, I can see that game being 1-1. I think
that's a tough game. And Villa away aren't phenomenal.
I mean, I would expect Watkins to get a return, but I think Darwin has more chance of hauling.
I think Darwin has more upside. Yeah.
Darwin has more upside this week.
Yeah, I agree. No, I definitely wouldn't bring that transfer forward if I were you. And I won't be doing it myself, even if Haaland is fit. So that is going to do it, my friend. What do you think?
Jack?
10 greens in a row? Is it possible? Could it happen?
I would be surprised if it happened, but yeah, let's hope the streak continues and I make it a double digits. But I would be very surprised.
I don't know.
Because
you got a good team. You got a good team. It looks good.
It's a decent team, but I mean, I'm not sure. I just don't want to get my hopes too far high up.
Of course. Well, I will be praying for you.
Cheers, mate.
So
Thank you.
We will see what happens. Guys, if you would like to take advantage of anything you've seen in this video and also get access to Bakar's final team reveal, including what he's going to do with his transfers, when of course we have the HAALAND information, then please do sign up to Fantasy Football Hub. There is a Christmas offer that has just gone live. 30-day free trial, 30% off. It's going to run roughly until the end of the year. So yeah, what a present, by the way, to yourself, let alone someone else. Just buy it for yourself or ask someone to buy it for you. It's great. You get all the stats, the air recommended transfers, and of course, you will know what Bakar ends up doing for sure. Bakar, thank you very much as always. I presume that your decision will be going up until the deadline. And
100%.
Yeah. Good luck, my friend, and good luck to all of you guys as well.
Good luck, everyone.